Today on Comicstorian, it's time for Spider-Man to get involved in the death of Doctor Strange. Here at Comicstorian, we take your favorite comic books, we break them down into digestible bites, and I read them dramatically back to you. We tell you the bare-bones plot as to what is happening in the world of comic books while I act them out. This allows you to know what's going on in the world of comics and to keep up with it, and potentially add them to your collection if you choose. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. When we last left off with the massive crossover known as the Death of Doctor Strange, we did issues 1, 2, and the Avengers' reaction to everything. Some mysterious person killed Doctor Strange, but a version of himself from the past came forward to help solve his own murder. This has had rippling effects throughout the multiverse, and the Avengers dealt with one of those. But today we're going to be covering the Death of Doctor Strange at Strange Academy, issue number 3 of the main storyline, and then the death of Doctor Strange Spider-Man. So let's get into it. Long ago, Enchantress pulls Stephen closer, smiling, as she tells him that she always knew she'd get him one day. "Get off, so I can focus on the task at hand," he snaps at her, pushing her away, turning to his enemies. "The evil wizard who currently has your infant twins," he reminds her. But the wizard merely smiles, pointing out that Enchantress has made a deal with him for her firstborn many years ago. Stephen turns back to her. "You really made one of those? I'll give you this if you promise me your firstborn deals." He asks with a raised eyebrow, and she smiles. "Of course I did. Dozens of times. I never thought I would have kids. As you can see, it kind of backfired." "You're the worst, you know that?" he says as the magic begins to swirl around him, and he casts a spell that hits the wizard Pulsari, quickly turning him into stone. "That's a neat trick, Stephen, but when your spell wears off, he'll return for his half of the bargain," Enchantress notes as she frees her children from the statue's grasp. "Don't worry, he will remain a stone decoration for as long as I live," Doctor Strange tells her. Now we go back to the present day, the day when Doctor Strange died. Brother Voodoo stands before the students of the Strange Academy, informing them that Doctor Strange has died and that classes will be suspended until further notice, until they make sure that they can keep the students safe. "We don't know how long this will happen, but we will reopen when we feel it is safe to do so," he informs them, and as the students gloomily move through the halls, Eric looks at his brother, telling him that he needs to grab his stuff. "Okay, I'll let Sif know to prepare the Rainbow Bridge," he says as he reaches for his phone. "I know it's not ideal, but I'm excited to be going home for a while," Eric says as he opens the door to his dorm, reaching for his bag. But a portal opens and Pulsari reaches through. "Unfortunately, you will not be seeing your home again," he shouts with glee. Alvi races into the room, but is shocked to see his brother gone. Later on, "How could you? You traded your firstborn son for a piece of jewelry?" Alvi shouts to his mother as the rest of the restaurant patrons look in shock. Enchantress raises her wine glass to her lips, taking a sip as she waves off the owners. "Michael, Christina, would you excuse me? My son Alvi seems to have forgotten his manners." Alvi sits down as Enchantress once again explains that she never intended to have children. "It was an easy deal to make," she says, finally standing, opening up a portal, asking if Alvi wishes to sulk or to help her get his brother back. He finally stands, following her. "Welcome to Weird World," she says with a gesture, leading him to a nearby town now that they've entered the Weird World. It's there that they find a strange bumper car that they begin to use. "We have to find the wizard as fast as we can and get Eric back and get out of this hell hole," she says, putting a helmet on Alvi before they take off. "How do we even find Pulsari?" he asks, and she nods, explaining that Weird World is tricky. Things constantly shift. "We're going to need to visit Chase and Avery, the map makers." Their journey quickly takes them to a roadside cart. And in exchange for 2 ice cream cones, Enchantress managed to get a map that will bring them right to the wizard Pulsari's castle. It's Alvi that is a little confused though, because the map appears to be bringing him to a former friend's house. But as Enchantress informs him, it would appear that Pulsari now lives there. Meanwhile, over at the Crystal Castle, Eric is slowly beginning to drain away, as Pulsari is looking into a crystal ball, seeing that a second-born son is on his way to finish the bargain that Enchantress has started. As Enchantress and Alvi begin to drive through Weird World in their bumper car, they begin to have a heart-to-heart as to why Enchantress was sorry that she wasn't there for her children, that she just truly didn't know how to be a mother. She couldn't find that kind of magic, she says with a sigh, but their conversation is interrupted by a loud bellow of rage. Both Enchantress and Alvi begin to roll out of the way as the woman is screaming, "Die, wizard!" But Enchantress waves her arms, making vines reach out and grasp at the woman. "Who are you and why do you want to kill me?" Alvi asks as he walks up to the trapped woman. "I am Goletta, the wizard slayer!" she snarls. But Enchantress steps past her son, smiling at the woman. Well, you're in luck. We're on our way to see a wizard who just may need some slaying. What if I ask you to spare my son and me? Instead, join us on our journey to slay a much more deserving wizard. Goletta's rage subsides for a moment. Which wizard would that be? So a short time later, all three of them are now standing before the Crystal Palace, with Goletta pointing out that it is a great honor to be the one to slay Pulsari, since he has brought much misery upon the land. Had I known that he had been unstoned, she begins, but is interrupted as Pulsari calls out from above them. You would have gotten yourself killed, just like you will today, Goletta. I'm afraid your axe will not be removing my head anytime soon, he says as he floats down towards them, holding the frail Ilric in his hands, dropping him to the floor as his minions begin to appear around the trio. I'm so glad that you brought your second son along. This one is a little worn out. I could use a new one. And Enchantress stares at her son in horror. He's drained Ilric of everything, she wails, and Alvi stares grimly. Then I say we kill him. What do you say, Goletta? Alvi snaps, and the three leap into battle against Pulsari's minions, but quickly discover that they couldn't keep them down. One attacks Alvi from behind, covering him in black tar. Mom, I can't move! He shouts out, but Enchantress is there, using her magic to blast the monster away from her son, bending down to his aid, words caught in her mouth. I know, Mom, he says quietly. Meanwhile, Goletta is rushing to Pulsari, blocking his magic. You are an unworthy foe, and I am ready to end this fight, she shouts, slamming her axe into his chest. And as it sinks in, Pulsari just laughs unaffected. You dumb barbarian! My skin was born of nether beast, and leathered with the blood of the first dragon. It cannot be penetrated, he gloats, but Goletta begins to laugh just as hard, pointing out that she wasn't trying to kill him. I was chopping off your pretty necklace so that the boy here can destroy it in you. She laughs, holding up his magical necklace that acts as a battery for Ilric's power. Alvi steps forward, using his magic to destroy it, leaving Pulsari withered as an old man on the floor. No, I am nothing without the boy's magic. And with the mission and quest done, Ilric is restored, and the Crystal Queen thanks Enchantress and her sons for helping restore her family to the palace. The two mothers smile as their sons head off to enjoy their time away from school. But now that we've seen a little bit of the aftermath of the death of Doctor Strange, we cut back to the Death of Doctor Strange issue 3. Some time has passed, and the Stephen Strange from the past is standing over his body in the autopsy room, tapping the recorder indicating that he will be acting as the mystical forensics. He begins assisting Jane Foster as she picks up her scalpel, and they begin. In the Avengers briefing room, the team is gathering as Clea, the former wife of Stephen Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimension, explains the origins of the three mothers, the ones who are starting to cause problems now that Stephen Strange has been killed. They came from beyond the outer planes. She begins creating a ball of magical energy to show her words. She tells them that the three of them are warrior queens who carved across the dimensions with the sole purpose of annihilation for the sake of their child. The child? Please tell me about it, Lady Clea, Thor bids, and she nods. The Peregrine is hungry, she says, telling them that the child is an apex predator that feeds on magic. Its favorite prey? Powerful beings of magic, like the warlords, like me. Explaining that its origins are unknown, but some believe that it is the feeder extrusion of some vast ninth dimension hyper creature. She squashes the magical ball in her hand. The mothers are its vanguard, tracking powerful magical beings so that the creature may be fed. She says to them, the pieces are beginning to fall into place, Stephen Strange says as he walks into the room with Jane, explaining to the group that powerful magic was used against the Stephen Strange of the present on the night of his death. His hands were taken as an act of ritual theft. My soul was stolen, and with it my power and the power allowed to me as the Sorcerer Supreme. Without my souls passing on, and without the magic of the Sorcerer Supreme, it all dissipated back into the ether. There can be no new Sorcerer Supreme. Strange tells them, and Clea nods, believing that the Earth will be doomed if it doesn't have a new Sorcerer Supreme, but begins to question why the warlords would even bother to come to Earth. It's the perfect place to hide, Wong says as he stands, believing that the warlords wish to make their problems the Earth's problems, and they want the heroes of Earth to fight for them. And we'll stop them. We're the Avengers, Captain Marvel states, with Stephen hoping that it is true, but explains that he believes that the Sorcerer Supreme is the only thing that can stop these three women. He looks at the other heroes and tells them that they need to deal with the invaders, that he must restore the office of Sorcerer Supreme. Magical mists beginning to swirl around them. I know the reason for my death. What remains is how and who, he says as they disappear. Back at the Sanctum Sanctorum, Clea waves her hand and sends her spirit away to search for the answers that they require. Stephen and Clea are left alone. They're quiet for a moment before Clea begins to explain to Stephen that he made her forget about him, about their relationship, that it was needed as payment to a devil for remaking the universe. Tears begin to fill her eyes as she explains that when Stephen died, her memories were restored of their time together, so that the devil could feel her suffering. And now here you are, as cold and brilliant as when I first met you, as when I first thought I could love you, and you don't even know me, she whispers to him, and Stephen reaches out, explaining that everything that he has seen in this time will never be his. The worst thing is seeing how he lived to be a fool, because a man who had your heart and lost it, I could be called nothing else, he says gently to her, and there's a pause as she leans in kissing him, but he pulls away explaining that while she is beautiful and brilliant, it would not be right for him to take advantage of her grief. She nods and stands. I'm sorry, she says quietly, but they're interrupted as the spirit returns, and the spirit calls out to Clea, explaining that she has found the Eye of Agamotto and the Cloak of Levitations. Far from here, mistress, caught up in the stone and the mortar, a place called Castle Mordo, mistress, the spirit calls. Back over in the home of the evil villain Baron Mordo, the wall explodes inward as Strange, Clea, and Wong float there. Stephen quickly moves, using his magic to fight through Mordo's animated armor, and the statues come to life. Finally, he turns and senses Calculus hiding in the shadows, and Stephen moves his hand, pushing the former mage against the wall. Where's your master worm? Strange demands, fear filling Calculus's eyes. There, he stammers, pointing with a shaking hand. Strange nods, stalking towards the door, and Clea and Wong are at his back. I implied earlier that it was no surprise to see you standing over my corpse, Carl. It was a surprise. It was a surprise because I could not believe that after all those years I hadn't killed you yet. But don't worry, Carl. That is a mistake I intend to correct, Strange calls, and on the other side of the door, Mordo is clutching the Cloak of Levitation in the Eye of Agamotto, fear in his eyes. But before we can see how Dr. Strange handles Baron Mordo, it's time to move over to see what is going on with Spider-Man. This takes place during the Spider-Man Beyond arc, so Ben Reilly, the clone of Peter Parker, is actually Spider-Man while Peter Parker is in the hospital. This is The Death of Strange, Spider-Man. The current Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, arrives at Peter's hospital room. It's there that he finds Felicia Hardy sitting by his bedside. How is he? Ben asks, but Felicia doesn't want anything to do with Ben, believing that Ben has used Peter's situation to his advantage and stolen the Spider-Man name. The two begin to argue back and forth, with the unconscious Peter being none the wiser. But that fight is suddenly interrupted as a bright light fills the room and Doctor Strange's head floats over Peter's bed. Spider-Man! The apparition shouts. I apologize for the abrupt nature of this message, but if you are seeing this, I am dead. This is but one of a number of spells that I have prepared to activate in the event of my death. Please make your way to the sanctum immediately. I fear I must ask a boon of you, my friend. Ben and Felicia glare at each other for a moment, but shortly swing through the rooftops of the city. You don't have to come with me, Ben repeats to her, but Felicia shakes her head, reminding Ben once again that he is not Spider-Man. Besides, I have to see this for myself. I just got done saving Strange's life. Now he's gone? I don't buy it, she says as they arrive at the sanctum and they tap on the window, drawing Wong's attention, who opens the window, greeting them both. Is it true? Ben asks. It is. It's going to be a difficult night, Wong tells them, but Black Cat looks up, seeing the younger Stephen walking in the background. He's right there! I can see him right behind you, she declares. But Wong doesn't bother looking. It's complicated, he tells them, and he hands them a list of notes, explaining that with Stephen's death, several magical bindings that he has worked throughout the city will begin to loosen. They need to be stopped before they hurt anyone. Spider-Man and Black Cat don't waste any time before they begin to move through the city again, passing a dark office where a cleaning lady is working hard. As they swing through the city, Ben looks at the papers. Strange left us a numbered list of chores and dossiers on each, he says, and Black Cat nods, asking where they're heading first. 1. Ensure that Gator Shaman has not discarded the treaties in my absence, Ben reads, and they shortly find themselves in the sewers, fighting against albino gators as the hobo shaman stands nearby. Doctor Strange is dead! The winds of magic sing of his demise! The treaties are gone! The gators will rise! He shouts as Ben punches another gator, flipping over a second one and shouting for Black Cat to grab the shaman. She comes up behind the shaman, punching him in the face and knocking him down. You think Strange kept you and your gators underground because he was a jerk? She snaps, ordering Ben to read the paperwork given to them, and Ben pulls it out, having webbed up the gators. Okay, here we go. The albino sewer gators of New York are one of the city's hidden wonders. While the gator shaman believes our battles to be of dominance for the city, in reality I clash with him merely out of concern for these creatures. If he were to succeed in bringing the gators to the surface, I worry for their safety. If their existence came to the attention of the Kravinoff family, then their extinction would be ensured, and the world would be poorer for having one less mystery in it. Ben reads. Shortly, the man is leading his gators back beneath the city to the safety of the darkness below. Their next stop is the Prince of Hearts, a fairy that eats the hearts of children. The pair find themselves on a fire escape looking down on a bloody moon night. "What? I told you I handled it!" he explains, pointing up at the dead fairy on the ground. "This is my territory. These are my people," he says, pointing to his mark on the wall. Moon Knight nods to them, bidding them good luck with the rest of their list as he disappears into the shadows. Next, they must make sure that the spirit of Mammon remains bound in bronze, finding themselves trying to wrangle the bronze bull statue in the city, followed by a Jiangxi attack in Chinatown. Then they fought against demons as they exercise the 666 train in the subway. Ben, meanwhile, lifts a hot dog cart over his head so that they can feed the Central Park dragon. They then head into the museum to fight against a group of mummies. Black Cat pours out a bottle of wine, appeasing the forgotten dead beneath James Walker's park. And unknown to them, the cleaning lady stands up straight, feeling her aching back, and she walks to another trash can, slipping on a solid drink, twisting her ankle and falling to the ground. Next up is the Goblin Attack, which Steven was certain would happen, and the two heroes swing through the air, chasing down the sports car as the goblins are swerving down the streets, cheering in their gibberish language. "You want to be Spider-Man, Riley? Then you better get used to goblins," Black Cat tells him as she lands on the car's roof. She reaches down, beginning to pull the creatures out of the car. "You horrible little things! How many of you little jerks are there?" she snaps. But Ben looks up, his spider sense warning him about a pedestrian on the road ahead. He leaps down, jumping in front of the car to stop it. "Have you lost your mind?" Black Cat shouts at him, but Ben puts his back into it. "Relax, the suit can take it!" He gasps, and the car finally comes to a stop a few feet in front of the pedestrian. The man doesn't even look up. "And a pleasant evening to you too, fellow New Yorker," Ben says, with Black Cat kicking the last of the goblins away, looking to Ben to see what is next. "Thankfully, there's only one left, but it doesn't make any sense. If Strange wrote it down, it's probably important," Felicia says, looking at the notes over his shoulder. Meanwhile, the cleaning lady that slipped walks out of the building, limping slightly as she makes her way to the bus stop. It's there that she hears Ben's voice. "Jamina, we're friends of Steven's. He told us that he sometimes runs into you around this time, and that most nights after a shift, you could sure use a pretzel." Ben tells her, holding out warm bread. 22. Bring Jamina Garcia a pretzel at the end of her shift, and make sure she gets on her bus to safety. Steven had it written there. The woman smiles at Spider-Man and Black Cat as they sit with her, thanking them and asking if Steven is okay. Felicia informs Jamina that he's fine. He just had some business that took him out of town. She thanks them again, biting into the pretzel, telling them that her talks with Steven, they always seem to cheer her up. It's a kind of magic, she says with a smile, and the bus arrives, and she thanks them again, getting on, leaving them into the night. Felicia wipes away a tear as the bus rumbles off into the evening, and Ben looks at her, pointing out that the world needs a Doctor Strange, just like it needs a Spider-Man. "Right now, I'm what we got," Ben tells her. She glares at him for a moment before standing. "Fine, you're Spider-Man, for now, but it won't be long. But for now, see you around, Spider-Man," she says as she walks off into the night, leaving Ben with a small smile on his face. And that concludes these 3 issues of The Death of Doctor Strange. Honestly, I really liked that Spider-Man one. It was just one of those warm, feel-good kind of comic books. I always love when we get to break down and see what the superheroes do when they're not being superheroes. And the idea that Strange would take time every night to just bring a pretzel to an old woman, I love that. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Next week, we'll bring you the next part of Death of Doctor Strange. There should be about 2 more videos total, possibly a 5th, but I think I can get it into 2 more. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon, and I'll see you next time right here.